Hello students, in previous part we have seen the structure of larynx. Now in this part we are going to see the structure of trachea, bronchi and the lungs. Now as we have seen, the larynx, it extends from the laryngopharynx and it is made up of three types of cartilage plates. The thyroid cartilage, it supports from the front, the upper side and the lower side. Then there is cricoid cartilage. This round ring-like structure you see here, that is the cricoid cartilage. It supports from the lower side. Then there are two more cartilage plates which support from the back, from behind, and those are the arytenoid cartilages. Now, from the anterior side of the thyroid cartilage arises a flap-like structure. That flap-like structure is called as epiglottis. This larynx, it leads into a tube-like structure. That tube-like structure is called as the trachea. Trachea is about 10 to 12 centimeters in length. It is a long tube-like structure. It is supported by C-shaped cartilaginous rings. Now this ring-like structures you see here, black colored, those are the cartilaginous rings. They support the trachea from the front. Now for example, this is trachea and this is esophagus. Both of them are arranged in this way. Now, the trachea, behind the trachea, esophagus is present. Behind esophagus, vertebral column is there. Vertebral column is present. Now, this trachea already has support from behind the esophagus and the vertebral column. But it doesn't have support from the front. So, to support this trachea from the front, the C-shaped cartilaginous rings are present. Those rings are not whole rings. They are C-shaped. They hold the trachea in this way to support it from the front so that it shouldn't collapse. So, these C-shaped rings, there are about 16 to 20 rings which support the trachea. And this trachea is internally lined with pseudostratified epithelium and the mucus glands. This trachea further gets divided into two tube-like structures. Those are called as bronchi. Now, the one which enters the right lung is the right bronchus and the one which enters the left lung is the left bronchus. Now, if we have to compare both these bronchi, the right bronchus is 2.5 centimeters long and the left bronchus is 5 centimeters long. Means the left bronchus is longer than the right one. The right bronchus is wider as compared to the left one. The left bronchus is narrower. As you can see in the diagram, the diameter of the right bronchus is wider than the left bronchus. The right bronchus is more vertical and the left is more horizontal. As you can see here, the right bronchus is more vertical and the left bronchus is more horizontal. These both left and right bronchi are supported by C-shaped cartilaginous rings. Just like the trachea, these bronchi are also supported by the C-shaped cartilaginous rings. Now, these bronchi, they enter inside the lungs. The triangular shaped structure is called as the lungs. These are narrower from upper side and wider from the lower side. Now, you can see here this triangular shaped structures. These are called as the lungs. They are narrow from the upper side and wide or wider from the lower side. Now, the area through which the bronchus enters is known as the hilum. The area here, the part from where the bronchus enters inside the lung, this part is called as the hilum. Now, if we have to compare the right and the left lung, the right lung is bigger in size, whereas the left lung is smaller in size. As you can see in the diagram, the right side, the right lung is bigger in size as compared to the left lung. Right lung has 3 lobes, whereas the left lung has 2 lobes. The right lung is divided into 3 compartments or 3 lobes. The superior lobe, the middle lobe and the inferior lobe. Whereas the left lung is divided into only 2 compartments, the superior lobe and the inferior lobe. Right lung is heavier for about 620 grams and the left lung is about 560 grams. As the size of the right lung is bigger, so it is heavier than the left lung. Right lung is about 620 grams and the left lung is about 560 grams in weight. Now, the right lung has no cardiac notch and the left lung has a cardiac notch. Now, this depression you see here, this depression is called as the cardiac notch. This is the place where the heart is situated or heart is placed. Both the lungs are surrounded by double layered membranes called as pleural membranes. Now you see here these layered membranes which I have drawn around these lungs. These are the double layered membranes. These membranes are called as the pleural membranes. Now the inner membrane, the red colored one, the inner membrane is called as the visceral pleura. And the outer membrane, the black colored one, that is called as the parietal pleura. Both of these membrane together make the pleura or the pleural membrane. Now in between these two membranes, visceral membrane and parietal membrane, in between these there is a fluid. That fluid is called as the pleural fluid. Now this fluid, it acts as a lubricant in between both of those membrane. It acts as a lubricant. It also protects the lung from the mechanical shocks. If any mechanical shock is there, that fluid, it protects the lung from it and holds both the membranes together. That fluid also holds both the membranes, the parietal membrane and the visceral membrane together. These are the functions of the pleural fluid. First, it acts as a lubricant. Second, it prevents the lungs from the mechanical shocks. And the third, it holds both of the membranes together. There is a muscular structure below the lungs called as the diaphragm. This muscular structure, you can see here, this membrane, that is the diaphragm. This diaphragm, it separates the thoracic region from the abdominal region. As we know, the lungs are present in the chest region or thoracic region. So this diaphragm, it separates the thoracic region from the abdominal one. Now, speaking about the bronchi, these trachea is divided into two bronchi. Those are called as the primary bronchi. Now, these primary bronchi, they enter inside the lungs, and as they enter inside the lungs, they get divided. In the right lung, this primary bronchus gets divided into three more branches. Those are called as the secondary bronchus. These why three in the right lung? Because there are three lobes in the right lung. One which goes in the superior lobe, second which goes in the middle lobe, and the third which goes in the inferior lobe. And in the left bronchus, the primary bronchus gets divided into two tubes. One which goes in the superior lobe and second which goes in the inferior lobe. The primary bronchus gets divided into two tubes. Those tubes are called as the secondary bronchus. Now these secondary bronchus, they further get divided, and that branches are called as the tertiary bronchus. Now primary bronchi, there are two in number. One which goes inside the right lung and one which goes inside the left lung. These further get divided. These secondary bronchi, there are three in the right lung, three lobes, so three secondary bronchi. And in the left lung, there are two secondary bronchi, two lobes, so two secondary bronchi. And tertiary bronchi, there are 10 in the right lung and 8 in the left lung. So here we have seen the structure of trachea, bronchi and the lungs. Trachea is a long tube-like structure which leads or which emerges from the larynx, and it is about 10 to 12 centimeters in length. It is supported by the C-shaped cartilaginous rings which support the trachea from the front. And this trachea is internally lined with ciliated pseudostratified epithelium and mucous glands. Now these C-shaped rings, there are about 16 to 20 rings which support the trachea. Further, this trachea is divided into two tube-like structures. Those are called as the bronchi. The one which enters the right lung is called as the right bronchus, and the one which enters the left lung is called as the left bronchus. These both right and left bronchi are also supported by the C-shaped cartilaginous rings. Then lungs, these are the triangular shaped structures. They are narrow from the upper side and they are wider from the lower side. Now these lungs, the area from where the bronchi, they enter inside the lungs, that area or that region, that part is called as the hilum. These lungs, the right lung is bigger in size as compared to the left lung. So if the right lung is bigger in size, it is heavier than the left lung. In right lung, there are 3 lobes or 3 parts: superior lobe, middle lobe and the inferior lobe. Whereas in the left lung, there are only 2 lobes or 2 parts: the superior lobe and the inferior lobe. The depression is present in the left lung. That depression is called as the cardiac notch, and this is the place where the heart is situated. Both the lungs are surrounded by double layered membranes. One is the visceral membrane and the outer one is the parietal membrane or parietal pleura. Both of them together form the pleural membrane. And in between these two membranes, the visceral and the parietal membrane, in between them there is a fluid. That fluid is called as the pleural fluid. This fluid acts as a lubricant. It protects the lungs from the shock, mechanical shock, and it holds both the membranes together. Now there is a muscular structure below the lungs. That muscular structure is called as the diaphragm. This diaphragm separates the thoracic region from the abdominal region. Now speaking about the bronchi. Primary bronchi, the trachea divides into the 2 tube-like structures. Those are called as the primary bronchi. They are 2 in number. These primary bronchi, they further get divided. In right lung, it gets divided into 3 tubes. Those tubes are called as the secondary bronchi. And in left lung, this primary bronchus gets divided into 2 tubes. Those tubes are called as the secondary bronchi. And these secondary bronchi, there are 3 in the right lung, there are 2 in the left lung. They further get divided into smaller tubes. Those are called as the tertiary bronchi. So these tertiary bronchi, there are 10 in the right lung and 8 in the left lung.